Arc Dream presents Delta Green The Garden, Part 1. Actual play of a Delta Green scenario, written and GM'd by Adam Scott Glancy.
You know what else you see on the island? Those giant, crazy coconut crabs.
All right, this is Shane Ivey. I don't know if you can see me over there, but I'm right here. And I'm with Arc Dream Publishing, and we publish Delta Green, the role-playing game. So we're here with Adam Scott Glancy and some close friends of ours. I'm going to have everybody introduce themselves momentarily to play test a scenario that Scott has been working on that deals with the ancient history of the organization Delta Green. Before we go any further, I want to thank Jesse Gorton, who runs all things gaming at NecronomiCon, for being super accommodating and helpful in helping us find a good location for running this thing tonight. And I want to thank you guys for running games for us here at the show, because it's a humongous help. Every chance we get to get stuff in front of players is good, and that's what we need. So that's me, and let's kind of go around and everybody do a brief introduction of whatever you'll admit to your identities to the world, or to at least the people that are going to listen to our Unspeakable Oath podcast. All right.
Awesome.
Scott, how
I'm
about
Scott
you?
Glancy. I am one of the original writers of Delta Green, and I've sculpted this little bit of horrible, this tiny little bit of horrible for the boys, which we'll be unleashing on them in a few moments as soon as we hand out characters. Hopefully they'll have a terrible time. Moving to my left is
Kevin Ham. Been playing Delta Green for a long time. I'm a local to NecronomiCon, is my local con, so it's good to have you guys visit my neck of the woods and Tim's. And if you really like the sound of my voice, you can check me out on a podcast called The Green Box, where we talk about Delta Green and we throw rocks at these fine gentlemen here as often as we can.
all right.
I'm Frank Fry. I've been gaming probably since the early 1970s. And I used to write. I've written for Game Designers Workshop for their Twilight 2000 line. I've written for Cyberpunk. And Vampire the Masquerade, as a matter of fact. So I've kind of been all over the place.
Yeah, great.
And but I've primarily been Call of Cthulhu. There, and Delta Green, oh wow.
Do we do it right?
Yeah, I'm a Vietnam veteran, ex-military. Yeah, they did it right.
That's good to hear.
All right, so I'm Tim DeShane. I'm a Rhode Island native, born and bred, except for my time in the Army away. So it's actually kind of interesting because
Coast Guards are
yeah, so we have a bunch of military dudes sitting at the table.
Except for the riders.
Yeah. It's all right. We'll talk about it afterwards. You got this wrong.
Those who can do, those who can't write? Is that
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, first thing we do is we do a lot of reading.
I started off to play a lot of like D&D and adjacent things, but more in the sword and sorcery genre than the kind of vanilla fantasy, which I'm very happy about the sword and sorcery line that you guys are
Oh, cool.
doing.
That's
yeah,
great. Thank you.
I did grab the first two books, and I'm also kind of lucky to say that I think 3/4 of my Delta Green game playing actually has been with you, Shane.
Oh, yeah.
Both online and back at the original Necronomicon. So,
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right, so what we're going to inflict on you is a scenario that I can, in order not to give away too much, I'll merely refer to it as The Garden. If I go any further with the title, it might be overly, there might be too many giveaways there. You guys are sailors and Marines on board the SS Percival, which is a armed supply ship in the Pacific at the very end of the First World War. Let's go ahead and be simple about the date and just say that it's, what is today, August 15th?
21st.
21st? Let's call it August 21st.
22nd?
22nd. August 22nd.
We're really good at time. Time means nothing.
It means nothing, at least not the date, but the year does. Because we haven't actually gotten to the point where Versailles closed down. We're not done blaming the Germans for everything in World War I and setting it up for World War II. We're also not done throwing the Vietnamese under the bus when poor old Ho Chi Minh turned up at Versailles and said, "Hey, I've got an idea. How about we dismantle colonialism?" And they showed him the door, and then they never heard of him again.
Shut that chapter forever.
Yeah, and then nobody ever heard the name Ho Chi Minh.
Colonialism was working just fine. Thank
Yeah, exactly. Which is
Turned
why,
out great.
kind of why we had the First World War. Now that I think about it, oops. So, anyways,
We're on a ship.
you are on this the Percival, and the Percival is an armed merchant ship out in the Pacific, which is
Is it
just
a U.S. ship?
yes, it is just about all that is left of the Pacific Fleet. After a little research, I found out we just absolutely emptied the Asiatic Squadron, which is what would have been the name of the fleet complement at this time. Was just everything that was worth a damn was moved into the Atlantic to go looking for U-boats or into the Mediterranean. The stuff that's scooting around out here in the Pacific is really second and third hand stuff at this point. However, things are beginning to rearrange. The fighting all ended in November 11th, 18. There is plenty of other nonsense going on in the world at the time. There's a division of army troops in Vladivostok for reasons that even now seem incomprehensible. Haiti is still under occupation by the U.S. Marines. Tons of U.S. Marines are being, discharged back into civilian service. The Army is shrinking rapidly at this time, like we do up until the Cold War, until I guess 52, and think, maybe we should keep some guys around with guns. You guys are out here in an area of the Pacific that is known as the Marianas Islands. Now, you are in transit from Hawaii through the Marianas out to Guam, and then eventually out to Manila Bay in the Philippines. That's our territory. Wake's up there too somewhere. The area that you're in, the Marianas, we're going to get to know that part of the world really well between 1942 and 1945, because we are going to shed an uncomfortable amount of American blood on these frickin' fly-speck dead islands that nobody should ever live on. But right now, they have passed from the hands of the Kaiser into the hands of the Emperor. The Japanese, our good and loyal allies during World War I, are now occupying these islands. They took them away from the Germans in 1914 with not much of a fight. Just kind of a scramble between the British and the Japanese to see who could grab up the most bits of the Kaiser's empire at the very end of the very beginning of the war. And the Japanese got a big chunk of it. They got places like, I think they made off with Saipan. I think they made off with what's going to eventually grow up to be, what's the big Japanese base on the Bismarck Sea? Because they'll still call things like the Bismarck Sea, and those names stuck. But what's Rabaul?
Rabaul.
That's the one. Thank you. Yes, they're the places that and Truk. The big Navy base at Truk is now just a bunch of palm trees the Germans pretty much ignored since they bought it off the King of Spain, I guess, after we beat them up in the Spanish-American War. Germans neglected the colonies. Japanese thought, hey, I have this idea. We're going to be a naval power. We should probably start running around the Pacific and checking which of these places we can actually anchor deep water ships at, because maybe we think colonialism is over, at least European colonialism. So you guys are crossing the sea. The Marines on board are merely this is a supply ship. You have basically been assigned on this boat space available. All right. The two Navy personnel that I have here are actually assigned to the Percival. But the Marines are just cargo. They're being shipped over. Eventually they're going to end up in Manila. But the other crewmen are actually, part of the ship. The scenario opens just mid-ocean, and we'll get into the nastiness as soon as possible. Do you want me to hand out characters at random? Do you want to choose characters? I can tell you their themes. What do you want to do?
I don't have a strong feeling. Anybody have preferences? What kind of sailor you want to be?
Yeah, I'll be a Marine.
All right, fair enough. We've got 3 of those. And as far as sailors, I got a pharmacist mate, and I've got the lieutenant.
Oh, okay, so only 2 sailors and
Two
everybody else
sailors
is
and 3
Marines.
Marines.
Okay.
So, got the lieutenant, and I've got a pharmacist mate.
Fine with dealer's choice. Doesn't matter to me.
All right.
Lieutenant Hope.
Okay, that's who you are. All right, Marines. Which Marine do I want to hand off? I want to hand off one particular Marine. I won't do that.
I'll take the one
Yeah,
particular
take the one you
Marine.
want to have.
All right, well, all right. Maybe I give it to you. I didn't give you the sniper, and I didn't give you the machine gunner, or the automatic squad automatic weapon guy. So we got a BAR man, and I got a sniper, and we got a pharmacist mate.
Oh, just ideal.
Okay, well, you should read his. They all have character descriptions on the bottom. Oh, on the back page. Excuse me.
Yep.
Character stuff's on the back, and this equipment list, because it wouldn't fit on this sheet, I just printed out an earlier version of the characters with their rather hefty equipment lists. So again,
Marine or pharmacist?
I roll for it. I don't know. Let's see. I'll do.
What do you think? Even
I'll do.
even you get the Navy guy?
Sure.
All right.
Even.
All right then.
one naval character.
Sure. Unless it works better for you to have 3 Marines in the.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to do this. You take this, you do this, and I'm going to be the NPC lieutenant and make you do things. Because I don't want to have any problems. I don't think I would have any problems with people not doing what the player character says, but this will simplify things. When it comes to making stupid and terrible decisions for the group, I get to do it.
Okay.
That'll streamline the process.
I trust Kevin to make terrible decisions.
I don't know, man.
Plus, as a former navigator.
The glasses make him look really smart.
That's how you get him fooled.
All right, fair enough. Marvelously, I have. Let's see here if I can pull this up. All right. Does anybody care where the islands are? And I can supply you with all the maps from the scenario if you're at all interested. There's some charming period piece maps I was able to find that show who owns what, where the British are, where the. Okay.
All right. So this is Corporal Scott with the Marines. He's a young 21, built like a boxer, red hair, green eyes, open, friendly face. Not the most self-reflective. If you're one of those people if your character is one of those people that looks for self-reflection in your fellow man, you're not going to find it in Corporal Scott.
No, he's got things to shoot.
Yeah, he is comes from West Virginia, backcountry, woodsman, ace sniper, and that's been his great opportunity compared to going back and working in a coal mine. So in his future is he looks forward to becoming a marksmanship instructor. He's planning on this being a lifer kind of a thing.
Anyone who's in the Marine Corps at this point is kind of a lifer because the Marines took on an enormous number of recruits in 1917 as everyone charged in, and the really weird number that always jumps out at me is that 40% of the Marines in World War I were college graduates.
Really?
In 1917.
Yeah.
When there weren't that many college graduates in America,
right.
40% of the people who came in with inducted class who joined the Marine Corps were college.
What? Do you know why that was?
Because the elite of America identified the elite force.
Okay.
The Army's for scrubs.
Right.
The Army's for kids who live in tenement houses.
Right.
Everyone came in with their.
They figured it was a class thing, and
Yeah,
she'd be
everyone
a
came in
Marine
the Marine
officer.
Corps, yes, or a Marine soldier,
Right.
had the coolest uniform, came
Right.
in, did their service,
The white
got
gloves.
out. They're all done
swords.
in 2 years.
Gotcha. That's fascinating.
The only guys who are left in the Marines at this point, as it's rapidly being demobilized, are the guys who don't want to go back to Alabama and they don't want to go back to West Virginia,
yeah.
or someplace like that.
I was going to say, Corporal Scott is not descended from patricians.
It's a neat stat. I think today 40% of Marines are kindergarten graduates, which is also impressive.
want to note we don't have any Marines at the table to defend themselves.
Yeah.
So let's.
Yeah, all right.
That's the time to attack the Marines
Rain in
when
the
they're not around to defend themselves.
I'm not a fool.
Perfect timing. It's very Sun Tzu of you. Always attack where the enemy isn't.
Exactly.
All right. Who's next, Tim?
So yeah, I'm also a Marine. I am a Lance Corporal Lyman Branch from Alabama. I am an automatic rifleman, and I also grew up in the South. I am an Alabama boy, built like a bull. Obvious, had some time doing some boxing, as I am pretty smashed up face, cauliflower ear, a nose that doesn't sit just right, and scarred knuckles. So I'm definitely, I have the visible "don't mess with me" kind of thing going on. I'm also known for my buddies during shore leave to like to do a little barroom boxing as well.
You were in, our two Marines here were in Haiti during the war, which meant things were relatively quiet. So there was time for barroom brawls. There were no times for barroom brawls at Belleau Wood. There was just, a whole giant shit ton of Germans with gas weapons and flamethrowers and,
Yes. Yep, I'm in my second enlistment, but I have not yet seen actual combat. But I am no stranger to violence.
How old is, what was the name?
Lance Corporal Lyman Branch.
How old is Branch?
He is 23 from Alabama. And I'm not going to try to butcher an Alabama accent.
Please. Yeah, everyone appreciates that. Especially since we're in the South Pacific, and if I have to do any Asian accents, this podcast will never be shown to anyone. I think that's how that's going to work. We're not going to end up
Goes into the vault.
Goes into the vault, otherwise it ends up being shared over on Stormfront or something equally horrible.
Yeah.
Let's try and keep that
And
to
for
a-
the record, to hell with that.
Yes. In case anyone wants to know our feelings on Nazis. Yes, next Marine in the line.
I am Gunnery Sergeant Alvin
Oh,
Matthews.
here we go.
I will only
My
add.
mistake, Gunny. I had an indigestion.
I will only add that the rumor is that he was assembled out of bits of Marines who died at Belleau Wood. Doesn't have a mother, doesn't have a father. Was just sewn together out of the corpses of people who'd heroically died on the Western Front. He is, in fact, your only Great War vet. Yes, sir, Mr. Ross. Unless I think you were leaving it at that, weren't you? Mm-hmm. Okay, just checking. Your turn.
So I'm Henry Ross. Everyone here would know me as Rico. Because everybody called me Enrique back home. My mother. So I'm Mexican American. I am a Navy guy, but I'm a corpsman because I've always wanted to be a Marine. And luckily, corpsmen have pretty high respect for Marines because they're the ones that go in and patrol the Marine stuff when they need it.
Keep you in business.
Exactly. Hasn't seen combat, but has seen plenty of action on shore, like these folks, and plenty of traumatic injuries and illnesses. And he's actually considering maybe getting out of the Navy and joining the Marines if it's not going to bust him down too far. We'll see.
I'm sure that after this next, once you get to Manila, everything will come together
Yeah.
for you. Because you're all clearly getting to Manila.
Pieces.
This is not going to, nothing will interrupt this trip. This will be fun. All right. On the morning of August 22nd, you guys get your ship is stopped in the middle of the Pacific, in the middle of nothing. And this is after having spent about 3 days being bounced around in stormy seas. The ship is not making a lot of headway. It's aiming itself into the gales and just riding out this particular storm. I will say that for those who are wondering, yes, there is a wireless that works both ways on this ship. It was newly added in Hawaii. Not every Navy ship had a wireless that's sent at this period of time. Wireless was mostly to tell you what was over the horizon. You'd get the weather reports and things like that. But not every Navy ship had that. But this one, especially some of the sort of what we call non-capital ships and non-combat vessels, that were just supply ships. That was sadly not that common. Certainly most commercial ships at this time do not have SN wireless. Most. Anyways, you guys the ship is stopped, and the first person who would have any contact with what's going on would of course be our Lieutenant Hope. You're the only person who's familiar with Hope because he is serving as the navigator for the Percival.
Is there a Marine officer on board?
No.
Okay, so
Again,
Gunny
guys
is in charge of the Marines.
He's the closest thing to
under
an
the
officer.
Navy officer.
Yes, I have no doubt that when you haven't been throwing up during the storm, he's been making you clean up your vomit, because otherwise, you might get into trouble.
Right.
Here in a ship, filled with, bags of, I don't know, whatever they're shipping out to the Philippines these days. Probably bullets. I did not fill in the range and the damage on some of these weapons, but they're all in the main books.
Yeah, we'll figure it
That
out.
won't be important. We shouldn't need our guns for
No,
this.
I don't anticipate
Everything that I think is important is in the
Yeah,
equipment list.
I can tell you the details if you need them on the weapons.
I don't think it's I've still got all these old CSE rules
Damn.
in my head, and it's taken a while to flush them all out.
I love this. 45 automatic, 12 gauge pump shotgun. Jesus, it's old home week for the jungle.
Well, the funny thing is, these shotguns that they're handing out, they do have the Winchester 97 as a boarding weapon in the Navy at this time. The BAR is completely new. That's brand spanking new in the inventory. It just came out last year. It's what the Marines are taking with them to the Philippines. But the shotguns, for some strange reason, don't have a bayonet lug. So sadly, you will not be able to stab anyone and then blow them off the end of your shotgun. I don't know what the deal is, but they did not use a bayonet lug.
I mean,
on the
commit
Navy
to
issue.
one or the other.
No, why? It seems like the exact thing you want to do is to clear your bayonet with a 12 gauge round. No, I realize that's terrible. I know that's not what you're supposed to do. There's an old documentary on Korea, and they brought out these old Turkish soldiers, and the Turks would complain, "Oh, the American bayonets, they are too narrow. You get them stuck in a Chinaman,
Right,
and
you have to shoot.
you have to
get
shoot
the
them off the
recoil
end."
and pull it out. Yeah.
That seemed to really bother them. They didn't get the bayonet people as effectively. I was like, this is 1950. You sure bayonet's the way? Yes, we're sure that's the way we want to go. We just pretend the Chinese are Greeks, and then everything's awesome. At least that's how I figure it goes if you're some crazy Turkish soldier and somewhere in the Pusan perimeter. The ship is brought to a halt, or at least its course is changed. At some point, Lieutenant Hope will come down and speak to your gunny, who will then speak to you. The basic message that travels downhill is the ship has come across a lifeboat. The lifeboat is going to be brought up next to the ship. They can't tell very much. It says his best guess, looking at the color of the uniforms of the people sitting in the lifeboat at this range, is that they might be Imperial Japanese Navy, our staunch allies at the time, who we in no way are anticipating having a war with anytime in the future. Except, boy, we really are. Things changed gears super fast after World War I, especially since we got to sit around and watch our Japanese allies trot out their submarine chasers and things like that in the Mediterranean. We got very interested in the Japanese very fast. I mean, we already were after they beat up the Russians in 2005, but they're better than that. They're better than they were in 2005. So, regardless, at the moment, they still remain our fabulous allies, so we're going to render aid. And in the process of doing that, they're going to immediately grab you as the pharmacist mate, and they're going to tow. What they're going to do is just put a boat down the water and tow this thing back to the ship, bring everybody on board. In the meantime, the three Marines will end up being security.
Are there other Marines on the vessel besides the three of us?
It's like I said, you guys are throwing on this thing like space available.
Okay.
All right, have not been part of the crew. It's all been horrible busy work, except of course for the vomiting and scrubbing it up afterwards. There has not been much in the way of duties. You've gotten all the stupid duties, like again, literally painting things and scrubbing the decks. And I shouldn't say that's stupid, because if you stop painting the ship, it rusts and then it sinks. But anyways, yeah, you've been doing.
We get the Navy work.
Yeah, exactly. You're not going to sit around sharpening your bolo knives. Anyways, they're going to stick you in the lifeboat with a couple of guys who are going to be rowing it out there with you. A couple of Navy swabbies and the lieutenant, who is the only person who speaks any Japanese. So, grab your, something about socks and other things that rhyme with socks, and then everyone get in the lifeboat. Any gripes, any complaints, any comments?
Gunny, what do they want us on this for?
I don't know. They just tell me I do it.
That means we do it, I guess.
Oh yeah, you definitely do it when he tells you to do it. I don't know about when the guy in the lights does it. I didn't actually mean that.
I don't think you have any Navy guys here. I think you're safe on that offense too. Sounds good.
Well, wait a minute. Did you say Navy or
Coast Guard.
Coast Guard? Well, you're only part of the Navy when things get sideways. You're Department of Transportation.
Homeland
Wait,
Security.
they moved you guys
Homeland
to
Security.
Homeland.
Oh yeah.
Well, is it better or worse under Homeland than it was DOT?
Yes.
Good. We don't want this used in a loyalty trial against you.
I was gonna say, are you still affiliated in some way?
No.
All right.
Just a vet now.
Oh,
Were you
and,
out before 2000 before that big changeover?
No, I got in 05, got out in 11.
Okay. So you said you weren't even
Gunny,
there for DOT.
by the
I
way-
never had DOT stuff.
Gunny Matthews smokes peyote cigars.
I think that makes sense. I mean, that makes perfect sense. You guys are bundled into this lifeboat. Somebody else is in charge of all the rowing. We won't worry about that. And this is the part where we get to entertain all the people who complained about there not being sniper rifles in this game. There's constant whining about the lack of sniper rifles, despite the fact there are rifles and then there are scopes.
I was going to say, a sniper rifle is a rifle you put a scope on it and you shoot things with it.
Yeah. Well, at least certainly in this time period.
Yeah.
Yes, there's all kinds of fancy schmancy, cheap pads and different configuration sniper rifles and, what do you call it, bipods and everything else that comes with it now. But it's 1919. It's just you have scope in your Springfield, in case anyone asks. So
Yeah, and it's not much of one either. I think it was a 4-power.
yeah, it ain't much. No,
The scope on all the Springfields or just mine?
one Springfield. Oh, sorry, you're the sniper.
Yeah.
Yours.
Okay.
That's it. Yes,
Right,
just that one.
Okay.
Don't drop the BAR overboard.
He said we're transporting more, so we're just grabbing others.
I'm sure you can just get one out of the inventory. That's fair enough. Anyways, what are you guys doing while the lieutenant is standing in the prow like George Washington, looking at the
How's the weather?
the weather, since it stopped trying to turn you inside out, has turned into a sheet of glass.
Oh, okay.
It is shockingly quiet this morning. It's all just
So we don't have to be bundled up in oilskins or something crazy like
nope.
that? Yeah, all right. I don't know.
It is just a giant blazing flashlight in the sky.
So I'm going to
burning
get my...
everything.
wait, I don't have binoculars on here, right?
Nope,
So yeah,
but,
so I've got a scope. So I'll kind of get the rifle up and scope in on the rescuees.
I guess that we'll call this an alertness roll.
Sure.
Please, if you would be so kind.
Where'd all my dice go? There's one. There's another. That is a 72, which still succeeds because I am so alert.
Just don't ask him to spell his name in the dirt with a stick.
Hey, not dumb.
It says some primary school, right?
I don't know what
I
it's.
think under your education, I think I wrote some primary.
Some primary school and USMC basic training.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure that literacy was required in 1919. It is now, but I'm not sure it was then. I know there's just going to be a bunch of leather necks seething about this the whole time.
I haven't said anything.
The one guy's life will be spared. You're here to tell the others what happened.
Oh, were you in the Marines?
No.
Oh, okay.
I was stationed with Marines.
He's not making
in
any
Iraq,
enemies
but
today.
that was it.
So, what you're seeing out there, here's the thing that stands out. What you're looking at is some sort of a sail in this thing. It's like a 30-foot lifeboat, white. There are a couple of figures sitting up in the lifeboat. And there's a sail and a boom on this thing, and the sail is destroyed. It is just tatters right now. And the boat is sitting very low in the water. Very low in the water.
Okay. Well, I'll kind of narrate that out.
Okay. Once you start getting close enough, Lieutenant Hope gets on, grabs up the megaphone, and begins shouting out a bunch of gibberish that makes absolutely no sense to anybody in the boat. Except, you'll all just have to presume he rolls really great on his speak Japanese roll. And it is no way saying, "Do you mambo dog face to the banana patch?" And then there's no response. But there is no response. Nothing moves on that boat. In fact,
Now, did I not see people?
oh yeah, you said there's two figures sitting up.
That's what I thought.
Neither one of them are wearing caps or anything on their heads. You can see their hair.
Well, I want to take a closer look then. Are they like sitting up because they're propped up?
They don't. They're sitting straight up, and
They're both
they don't
facing the
look like
same
they're gonna-
direction or facing each
no,
other?
they're actually it would be. They're both facing the stern of the vessel,
All right.
but
Not looking around or.
no. Give me another alertness roll because you're much closer.
No, that one
Okay.
is a failure.
He's even
Well,
less this close.
You once you get super close,
Get bored and
it's
put the
getting
scope down.
obvious. It's not the kind of thing that I think takes an alertness roll. But when you get close enough, you will notice that these two guys, who are sitting up in the boat, are both covering their eyes, their hands.
Yeah, I'll kind of pause for a second describing them. And
Now, at this
then-
point, it
then
is
say,
obvious
hey.
to everybody. You'll get a little quicker view because
Right.
you've got the binoculars. But it is close enough that, it rapidly becomes clear that they're both sitting up and holding their eyes, sort of in that, hear no evil, see no evil sort of thing.
Is that a common medical? Is there a reason for? Would I know of any, exotic South Sea disease that causes this or anything? Or have any ideas?
Go ahead and make a roll against either medicine or pharmacy. I think it's medicine. Actually, yeah, you could also roll against your intelligence.
It'll probably intelligence will do me a little better on that one. So,
What out of what?
78 out of 70.
Okay. It could be a disease.
Could be an
Totally
exotic
could
South
be
Sea
a disease.
disease.
It's a 77, so
Yeah.
it's clearly Blackwater Mambo fever.
I heard it was the Marianas clap.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys get close enough to this thing where now let's see here. There's
Scott, what did you say the size of this ship, what this boat was again?
how's it again?
The one that they're in, how big is this?
This thing is like a 30-foot lifeboat, and frankly, so is yours.
Yeah.
I mean, there's more places than are being manned, but right now what you've got is 4 Navy guys who are pulling the oars, with a guy in the back, 5th guy in the back on the tiller, and the lieutenant up front, and then the 4 of you. So that's 10 people in this boat. It can hold a crap load more because this is, again, a lifeboat. It just won't be comfortable and you won't have as much food.
Would you say this is a lifeboat scenario?
Yeah, it could be.
A little on the nose.
Yeah, maybe I should change the title.
Scott?
Yes.
Bam! Pam!
Well, the lieutenant is scared. It jumps out of his pants because he had his back to you when that happens. But the thing that everyone notices is that nothing stirs on the lifeboat.
Maybe it is a disease. Death.
That's a condition. Not a
Look, 1912 Corman, 1918 Corman doesn't know that.
Look, you, as a corpsman, you understand there's such thing as germ theory. Okay, it's not caused by miasma. Don't go all 19th century on me and be like, well, maybe if we got them some cleaner air.
Yeah, the vapors.
Yes, or we'll fire the plague cannon. That was always my favorite, was the plague cannon, where if New Orleans would have these yellow fever outbreaks, and they would fire cannons to disturb the fetid air,
Right.
so that it would clear, the disease would go away. Yeah.
Yeah, plague cannon sounds to me like something out of Warhammer 40K.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely a Nurgle weapons team called the Plague Cannon. I can almost guarantee that.
Or a band.
I'm not saying it's not a band.
Good name for like a
It's
punk
really
band.
it's really good name for a band. The Navy guys have stowed their oars and are pulling out the gaffing hooks to pull this thing over. At this point, Hope is yelling at these
With
guys.
the gunshots, did they flinch at all?
Nope.
Yeah, so that's weird. So as we're gaffing and pulling over, I'll make sure I'm kind of like on the side of the boat with my
With the
my
BAR.
BAR. Yeah.
All right. In case you need to sink it.
Yeah.
It needs to be a colander. Well, the first thing you're going to figure out is that the boat is full of a lot of water. It's really sitting low in the water, and it has got a bunch of corpses in it. There are guys awash in the I guess you'd call it the gunnels of the lifeboat. And go ahead, everyone, make an alertness roll.
Good.
Success.
Okay.
Good to go.
Is the elder sign a 1 or a 0
Thank you.
on these dice?
You're asking me? It's your dice.
It's not my dice.
It's a 0.
It's a 0, okay. It's a 6 out of 60.
All right, let me just turn this off because suddenly I realize I've left mine.
Yeah, I made it 47 out of 65.
Okay. The guys who are washing around the bottom of this boat are not floppy, bloated, sun-bloated corpses. They're flopping around completely stiff as boards, but in various strange positions. One of them is holding on to an oar, and then is flopping around in the water. And as the oar moves, he kind of rises out of the water and splashes back in. But his elbow doesn't move, and his shoulder doesn't move, and his wrist doesn't move as he's doing that.
It's almost like
There's some guys in the boat that look like they could have been sitting on the bench seats before they fell over into the bottom of the boat because their knees are still bent. They're bent at the waist now, but they're laying in the bottom of the boat.
like
that-
rigor mortis looking? Like that kind of look?
That is the first thing you'd think is rigor mortis. You made your roll?
For alertness, yeah.
Okay. Go ahead and give me a roll under medicine first aid.
97.
Okay. They look fine to you.
Not a very I'm not a great corpsman. I'm sorry, guys.
Get these rolls out now,
Yeah.
so that later, when they're all full of bullets, you can actually perform. You know he's gonna be the first one shot.
Yeah.
That's how that formula works.
Save the med kit for yourself.
These guys look they look a little pale. All the bodies look a little pale.
Totally normal.
They're but you know, like I said, they're all just at this point, I'm going to go ahead and ask everyone to make a sand roll as I get into more details.
Critical success.
Okay.
Good to go.
Regular success.
Now, if you're what do you call it, adapted to violence, I think we might have 2 people here who are adapted to violence.
I am adapted to violence.
So you'd succeed.
You automatically succeed. Did anyone fail it?
Okay.
Okay. The bodies are wrong. You can see a couple of faces sticking up, you know, out of the water in the bottom of this thing, face up. And the sea is washing in and out of their open mouths. They look like they're white and pale, but they look like they're super old. They must be old corpses because they are there's no eyes in their heads. You're not seeing any eyes in the sockets. The skin, there doesn't seem to be much in the way of fat in the faces. The hands, you can see bones through the skin. Even though the skin looks sort of waterlogged, like it's been in the water, like the hand that's holding onto that oar, that hand looks absolutely mummified. All right, but the bodies that have been washing around in the salt water, they look like they've taken on some of the moisture in the environment and have gotten kind of weirdly soft, like leather perhaps, that had been submerged in water for a long time. But regardless, gums are exposed. Lips have pulled back into these big rictus grins. There's a lot of teeth staring up at you from these bodies washing around. There's a couple of bottles of what looks like maybe wine or something floating around in the bottom of the boat. There's underneath the water, you can see, washing around some bolt-action rifles of some variety. There's some bags and stuff in here, but that's all you've got at the moment.
Are they? Do we still think they're Japanese?
Well,
or?
it's actually a little hard to tell
sure.
that they're Japanese. They're short guys. I'm not saying they're not short guys. They're, of course, it's one of the things to remember is everybody's shorter in 1919. But the monstrously tall person's 6'2", in the group.
Mm-hmm.
But the average Japanese heights for this time for men were like 5'4", and below. That was pretty average. And these all look like small guys. They all look like they're wearing Japanese naval uniforms, which you would have at least seen in places like, anyone who's been in Manila would have seen one. They're kind of a very dark navy blue with a sort of that weird weight. I don't know what you call it, the collar that goes over the back, and I don't want to call it a bib and make every Navy person angry because I said bib. I can't remember the name of that piece of.
Might very well be bib.
But there's some some of them were wearing rubber-soled, these sort of rubber-soled shoes that you'd be using to run around a deck of a ship, and not fall on your ass on a steel deck of a ship or something. Although their feet are sort of rattling around in the shoes at this point.
So, Gunny, we just going to sink this plague boat or what?
I'm all for it.
Well, the lieutenant has a better idea.
Lieutenant,
Of course, the lieutenant does.
Of course,
The better idea is for the pharmacist mate here, and perhaps our Marines, to go onto the boat and retrieve things like identity discs, find out if there's a navigation log in this thing anywhere, that sort of thing.
We can see the whole boat, right?
Well, yes, but there's still storage. Lifeboats don't just have, they're not just like a Viking longship. There is a prow and a stern cargo areas on these things that are usually pre-packed with supplies when you're going to jump overboard. So there's that kind of stuff. So congratulations, everyone gets to go down and stumble around in the big Supo corpses.
LT, can I ask a question?
No.
Gunny, ask him a question.
What's the question, Corporal?
That looks like a plague boat. Why don't we just sink it?
That does check out.
He says it's better for my ambition to discover some sort of cool Japanese intelligence for you to go onto this boat and muck around with it. He doesn't
Yes,
say
sir.
it. He doesn't say it in so many words, but I think that's the
Yeah, I
translation.
get it.
Yeah. I'm going to do much better with this NPC than you would.
I mean, you could have given me some direction. That could have been really.
You would have been reasonable. You'd have been like, take the BAR and shoot holes in it, and we'll get the GTFO, and everyone has beers in Manila.
I like that plan.
We won Delta Green.
Well, look, there's winning Delta Green is playing Delta Green, and I think we're here to play. So.
I mean, I'm gonna leave the rifle in our boat because what am I gonna snipe on that thing? And
Yeah.
I guess.
Famous last words.
Yeah, really. Do we have? I don't guess we have anything like a. I need a plague mask.
You need a
We don't have
biohazard
like
suit?
marine issue plague.
Do we have
masks
any
with the big
concept-
beak coming off of it?
Yeah. Do we have any concept of like personal protective equipment or dust mask, that kind of thing, or is that too?
No, but on the plus side,
Handkerchief over the mouth, maybe.
now I will note that for a plague ship, there's no bugs on this thing. I mean, it's not like there's flies swarming around these bodies. There's nothing like that.
Somewhat odd in and of itself.
I'm well out in the middle of the sea. Well, the flies would always stay pretty close to the boat if these guys have been coming from.
Were there any birds around it
Of
either?
course, at the same time, the sails are torn up and the thing is pretty. The thing is filled with water. It may have been in the same storm that you guys were.
Do they have any
The
like?
bodies have obviously been mummifying out here a while. You know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna
Well, you'll be
climb over
safe.
there.
Just put
I
your
mean,
shirt up, and that'll protect you.
Yeah, all
works.
right. I'll
that
put
works.
I'll put the thing up and then head over.
Yeah.
Splish splash, you get your pooties wet
Yeah.
in the boat.
I mean, I'm ready to render first aid, but I think.
He has to find a live one first.
Yeah, exactly. what do you see?
Yeah.
Okay, wait for you guys to punish the publisher by making him go first. All right, sir, go ahead and give me an awareness roll.
Yeah, it succeeds.
Okay. You do have things like, I mean, first of all, there are gaffing hooks, right? You know what a
Yeah.
gaffing hook is?
Yeah.
All right. You could take one of those and
For the audience, a long thing you
Yeah.
can use to pull a boat closer to.
Exactly. If you want to take one of those and like poke the bodies, you know.
Yeah, that sounds like
or-
a good idea.
or-
I mean, I was thinking I could put a bayonet on my rifle, but then if I
You surely could. You could
if I
spear
poke
the-
anything, it would screw up the scope, and that's a pain in the ass. So
Yeah.
a gaffing hook will do.
All right. So you take the gaffing hook and proceed to poke some bodies.
Yeah.
All right.
I want to be just right there with him because it's wanting to be the toughest guy in the room or on the boat. So to
Okay.
say, I'm
Do
not
you
going to
leave
let
the
myself.
Well, you take the BAR. Or do you
No,
just-
I'm going to leave that and just have my 45 and my knife.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so you go over, you start poking these bodies. They don't. Sadly,
I mean, the only two that look like they might even be alive are the ones sitting up, right?
and those guys, because they're sitting up, they're super mummified. I mean, they're just.
Yeah.
They don't have
eyes
any
are
water. The water has rolled off of them during the rainstorm, and they're just sitting there looking back towards the aft of the boat. They're out with their mouths open and their hands over their faces, and these big, displays of teeth right behind the eyes,
Yeah.
or right behind the, right under the eyes. They look awesome. They're just right at you.
Yeah. Yeah, they're all dead as hell.
Well, it says collect the identity discs. Look and see if you can find anything else on board.
Does any of them have a officer uniform on?
Give me an awareness roll, please.
Success.
Okay. You do see a guy at the back of the boat who does look like he might have an ensign's uniform on because he's got shoulder boards and gold shit on it.
Yeah, well, I'll point at him and say, "LT, is that an officer?"
He says, "That's an ensign. Go grab his stuff."
All right. This goddamn pain in the ass. Grumble so they can't
Splish,
hear.
splash, splish,
and,
splash.
And kind of body step to the.
Yeah. When you were poking these guys with the first roll in awareness, you were poking these guys with the gaffing hook. They don't move like dead bodies in the water. I mean, they're kind of floating.
Yeah.
They're like they're light.
They don't feel squishy enough.
No, and they feel light. They feel very light.
Yeah.
There's a grand total. There's a grand total of 5 of the boat.
I'm gonna chalk that up to dead people are weird and focus on the ensign.
You do know that, yeah.
Yeah, they're definitely weird.
Yeah.
So you're okay. You pull the identity disc off this guy. What else do you do? I should just ask.
I mean,
Tell you.
touch him as little as possible and not breathe in whatever is
Miasma.
coming off. Yeah, and yeah, like if so, I'm just kind of get my knife out because that gives another
Couple of
4
feet.
inches of reach and Well, these are those World War I Marine bayonets.
Oh my
so
God!
they're
Yeah, they're like a
enormous,
foot
so-
and a half long.
So
Saber.
yeah, so I'll use that to kind of just fiddle with things until I can see where the identity disk is,
Alright.
or anything anything that looks remotely useful.
All right, while you're doing that, clang! He jumps and knocks the bayonet away with what looks like a pistol in his hand. He you're poking at him with the bayonet. He just suddenly goes clang, and his hand comes out of the water and knocks the bayonet away, and he starts babbling crazy moon talk at you. What do you do?
Did I drop the bayonet?
I don't know. What do you do? What do you do? What does anyone do?
Whoa, motherfucker, sit down! Sit down! Sit down!
That helps. All right. He did not. Let's see here. I didn't roll high enough to suggest that it was a critical hit, and that or a double-digit roll, and that it so that would mean knock the blade out of your hand. But you're standing there with a knife, and he's standing there with a gun.
Yeah, no, I'm ready to stab his ass.
Okay.
I'm scared.
He's babbling in Japanese. You hear somebody else yelling, Lieutenant, babbling in Japanese. What do? You're standing right
Yeah,
there.
I have my pistol, and I'm kind of like trying to angle myself so he's not directly in the way. I'm just
Okay.
kind of watching confused as far as like what the hell's happening.
All right. Anybody else? You?
Do I have if I had my gun up, would I have a clear line because I'm still in our boat?
The boats
to the
are
side,
the
or-
boats are parallel to each other. They're at this point it's sort of broadside. You're in perpendicular to that, all right? Technically you would be firing. If you fired your weapons, you would not be intercepted. You would not be firing through
Gotcha.
Corporal Scott.
Unless
hold up-
your aim wasn't all that.
I'll hold up my, assumably my medical bag has a red cross on it. I'll try to hold that up and get attention to show that we're here to help our
Is
allies.
he still yelling at us?
Yes,
Not that I know any Japanese.
he's going full Norwegian. If I may go.
What's he doing with that pistol?
He's it's pointed at you.
All
It's
right,
waving around while he waves his
Put
hands.
that thing down! Put that thing down!
And there is somebody probably yelling something similar in Japanese from the boat behind you. What do you do? He's not putting it down.
I'll tell you what's Japanese for shut the fuck up and sit down.
You're probably hearing it from the lieutenant. He's not really pointing it at you now that it ends up going past you, but he's waving his arms around and the pistol's just.
Oh god.
Is he right at the stern?
Yeah.
You know what? Fuck it. I've still got that. No, I put down the gaffing stick because I was messing with him. I want to just like get in there and either shove him overboard or or if he won't go overboard, wrestle the gun out of his hand.
Before you do that, pow!
All right. Pistols before shoving. Go ahead and make me roll, sir.
Let me get my glasses on.
Oh no. I hope I hope Gunn doesn't need glasses when he's actually shooting.
Actually, so I can read the
So
characters.
is he more than say 10, 15 yards out?
No.
Okay.
No.
So it'd be normal.
This
normal
is
chance.
as far away as you and
Made it! 51 out of 65.
Go ahead and roll me some damage.
Yeah, just
Okay.
make it a D10.
Okay. Eight.
Buzz! Well, a hole appears in the front of this gentleman, little tiny one. I can't speak to the hole,
Right.
the exit wound, but he sits down right in the bottom of the boat. And as he sits down, he goes, and he's still got his arm up with the pistol in it.
I want to get out of the way of the
God.
pistol, so it's not pointing at me. Okay.
Yeah, gunshot wound I can treat. I don't know what's going on with the rest of these guys, but I can treat a gunshot wound.
All right. I'll look at him like,
I'm just looking at the LT and Gunny like, what do we do?
Well, see if that, nip is still alive or whatever horrible word we're using for Japanese in 1919. I don't know if we've got around to call. I think the Brits were the ones calling them the Nipponese and back in the day. See if that, and we're not even calling them
I'll put
Japs
the
yet,
I'll put the
because-
bayonet up and get the pistol away from him and throw it overboard.
Okay, you start working the pistol out of his hands. His finger cracks off.
The hell is?
The hand is absolutely mummified around the pistol. You broke the finger off in the trigger.
So
I'll tell you, his finger came off.
seeing that and just seeing the condition this guy is and what happened with him, any of these bodies that are closer to me, I'm gonna smack one in the face and see if anything happens.
Good answer. Okay, he's in the back giving a little short punch to some of the bodies. Only that happens is like maybe the next bones go crunch. And the head is at a 45-degree angle. You know, if you punch them, if you punch the ones who aren't in the water, there's kind of a dry sound as you punch their flesh. If you punch one of the ones that's in the water, you're still feeling like you've hit enough guys that you know that the bone is way too close to the surface. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That even though this has been moistened.
Well, looks like Gunny killed the only alive one.
The lieutenant gives you an ugly look about this and says, "Well, we'll clearly have to have a dressing down about this when nobody's looking." Is the silent message, you know? Whether you have to listen to him or not, I don't know. You're still 8 years older than he is. So the lieutenant has your,
Yeah, I mean, I'll look, if he has some kind of ID, I'll
Okay.
get that. I'll check his pulse to see if he's alive, because I doubt it a lot.
Nope.
And,
Not as we know it.
Yeah, I'm not picking up a plague body that bleed all over me.
What do you mean?
That. Did he tell us to bring the body back over?
No, I mean, what do you mean about blood everywhere?
I don't want it on me. Is there
Well-
blood all over me?
There's no blood.
Oh, when he got shot, no blood. All
There's
kind of-
some. I mean, he took a full load of buckshot in the chest. There should be an enormous amount of blood washing around in this boat with you, but it's just this rather slow spread. But on the uniform.
All right, I'm just going to shake my head. This is all. These people are sick as hell. And is there anything else useful on him?
No, you managed to. Well, you're going to find some personal effects. You're going to find things like identity papers, identity discs is probably what's on the non-coms. The various,
if I have a
various semen and
haversack, I'll jam that into my
Okay.
bag. And
there's there is washing around the bottom of this thing a sextant. There is a what looks like some sort of a log book that is ballooned up to about this big.
I'll take that too, even though
there's,
not all it'll be.
There is what else? I think I'll drop that plot point and not worry about it, so we can streamline the scenario. But that's about it. There's some rations, cans of water. It's all Japanese on it.
I think I might pass on those.
Things like that. There's these Japanese bolt action. Like I said, there's like 3 or 4 of these Japanese bolt action rifles in this thing.
Arasaka.
Undoubtedly, I don't. You guys have probably had no cause to see an Arasaka rifle fired in anger at this point in your careers. Maybe your kids will, but right now that's quite the foreign object to.
Hang
you
on to
guys.
them, give them to your grandkids. They'll be worth a lot of money.
Yeah, especially the old models, which are gigantic. I will say that the funniest thing about these damn rifles is they look like they're as tall as the guys who shoot them. It's just bananas. You put a bayonet on it, it's literally
It's a short spear.
Yeah, exactly. In any case, you collect their ID discs, you collect the logbook, you collect. That's probably about it. Like I said, there's a sextant. There's not much else in this thing.
And I'll take the sextant too.
Yeah. All right. Good.
That's
That's
Navy-ish.
actually a very good idea. And of course there is the only other thing that's of any interest is the kanji on the that's painted on the prow of this ship. But your lieutenant is scribbling that down in a notebook. At this point, since everybody appears to be DEAD, the lieutenant goes ahead and says, just get back on the boat and shove off from it. I don't even know if there'd be even any point in attempting to sink it because it's such a small. It's already awash. They just push it off and let this thing sail off. be pushed off by the tide, hopefully, or the motion of the ocean. Just with those two guys again staring at you as they leave, smiling with their hands over their eyes. Back on the boat.
Kind of doc, you ever seen anything like that before?
I mean, I've seen bodies, but not like that.
Did you take anything on back like the finger?
I think you said he tossed the pistol overboard, right?
Yeah, I did.
Splash! So much for the Nambu.
Yeah.
And I gotta tell you, this particular model of the Nambu had a ridiculously tiny trigger guard. They blow them up in World War II, so they're bigger. But this time it's tiny. Yeah, this would have snapped off almost no matter what you tried to do. It's super
Not to mention the fact that's one of the crappiest pistols ever made.
Well, at least it doesn't go off when you squeeze it. I mean, that wasn't a Nambu. It was something else that would like go off if there was pressure on the side of the pistol. If you had a round in it, it would fire and blow your pants off. I mean, that was amazeballs. Maybe that was also a Nambu, but this is the classic Nambu that looks like a Luger, as the stopping power of, I don't know, possibly a thrown rock. And it's not exactly a 44 Magnum. Regardless, back on the boat, you guys are paddled back.
I'm happy to be done with that.
Yep. Everything's gathered
On to
up
Manila.
and given to the lieutenant. And for a while, nothing happens. The lieutenant is locked in his stateroom, not unlike, Professor Armitage with his copy of the Necronomicon, formulating the plan that you guys are going to get to execute.
Perfect.
A gruesome crime draws Delta Green to the haunted desert. Bodies have been ritualistically mutilated. Bizarre words carved into the drywall speak to the insanity of the killer and the urgency of the investigation. Home, Dagon, home, Ychanthale, sea to the sea. Oblivione is a scenario for Delta Green, the role-playing game of Lovecraftian horror and conspiracy. Written by Dennis Detwiller, Oblivione is available now in PDF and paperback at drivethrurpg.com.
And at some point, he does in fact emerge from his cabin. I shouldn't say he's in there the whole time, but he's got this Japanese stuff with him, like at a station, where he's trying to dry out the book and then trying to interpret what the melted, ink that has been washed off this page by it being in seawater and such. Mm-hmm. At some point, probably a couple days later, you guys are brought back in. You've been taking their temperature.
Sure.
And checking their eyes and make sure that, particularly this one, because he touched the fugly stuff, whether or not there's any changes in him. Temperature doesn't go up, no clammy skin, he doesn't grow any tentacles. You checked everywhere.
It's good.
Like everywhere.
Of course.
And
It's underway. We're fine.
yeah, so nothing weird happens in the next 2 days. But your lieutenant comes back down and rustles you up and explains what we're going to do for our next step in the scenario, which is we're going to go to an island. This lifeboat, is from a Japanese survey ship called the Sadomaru. And the Sadomaru is, as I said, it's a survey ship. Basically what it does, its duty would be to travel around the new Japanese possessions in the South Pacific and survey the harbors, trying to find survey the islands, trying to find places that have protected harbors, find places that there's not a reef that's going to destroy any ship that tries to dock there. There are some marvelous islands in the South Pacific that have things like great water sources on them, and then you can't dock. You can't. There's no anchorage for a ship, because you'll just tear up you can only come in at certain hours of the day, and it's useless. However, let's see here. However, let's see. Here we go. However, the Sadomaru is it's one of those kinds of vessels. Sail and coal burning vessel. It would have been put down sometime in the late end of the 19th century. So not necessarily that modern a vessel, but it would have would have had the capacity to do soundings, to do mapping, things like that. The best, he's got some guesses based on this logbook. And the logbook is filled with crazy bullshit. But in between the crazy bullshit that you grunts don't need to worry your pretty little heads about, because I'm sure it won't come up later in the scenario. In between all that, he thinks that this ship came from the island of Kosrae. Now, Kosrae is one of those islands I mentioned before. It is a reef-surrounded island, sometimes referred to, and I shit you not, as the island of the sleeping lady. Because, apparently, somebody thinks, that if you approach the island from a certain direction, it looks like a reclining woman. Well, I don't know. But, that's their description. That's
If you've been at sea long enough,
anything looks like a woman. Even Gunny will start to look a little more attractive. But the island is, it's a Polynesian island. Germans used to have it. Japanese have it now. It's got genuine mountains on it. It's got a freaking river on it, because it gets enough rain in the mountains, and the soil up there holds on to it long enough that it actually turns out, I should say river, I should say a creek. But it's one of the best, it's a well-known freshwater source in the area. It was such a good water source that in the 19th century, we almost wiped out the population by making everybody sterile with gonorrhea. Because 19th century sailors would show up and say, "Hello, Polynesian naked people. What'll it take to rent out the women folk? I think some steel tools would be fantastic. How about some machined goods? Okay." And the result was huge sterility numbers, and the island massively depopulated, and was only saved because apparently American missionaries showed up and got super duper puritanical and gave them some of that good old God-fearing religion and put a dress on, and it's an island that doesn't have grass skirts and coconut bras. It's long dresses and full shirts, literally, unlike their neighbors, because they seriously got this old-timey religion and very puritanical. So the island was sort of saved, and then it passed out of the hands of the Germans. Germans didn't give a shit, and then it passed out of the hands of the Germans into the Japanese. But it's surrounded by mangrove swamps on the... in fact, this again is like a 1930s map of the island. If I can hold this up. Anybody have any trouble seeing this? I mean, I know the folks at home, you're screwed. I'm sure we'll shop in this later. The black stuff's all mangrove swamps around this thing. These are the ridge lines of the mountains, like Mount Krosner and Mount Boache. There are just a couple of communities on the island. There's one down here in the south. There's one up here, two up here actually in the north, and then there's an island off the coast of the island called Lelu Island, and the village is on the island, not on the mainland. The whole thing is surrounded by reefs, so it is no good. Even this minor, these harbors are not very protected. They're very small. The closest thing to a harbor is this sort of bay up here. Let's see if I can get a better shot of that. Somewhere in here is an actual USGS map. So ignoring the airport that they've put on the island. Okay, oops. Stop that.
Gunny, why does he want to go to this island?
Well, that's where the Japanese ship came from.
All right, Gunny, why does he want to go to this ship?
So, like I said, there's this little bay with Lelu Island, and I should note that this is not here. This is a recently added community. And again, it's the kind of place that you can. It's Lelu Harbor, excellent. It's the kind of place that you can row into. The ship would have to be sort of docked outside the reef. Modern maps demonstrate they've blown up or dredged or whatever, wrecked a section of reef so that you can actually get closer to the island. But back in this time, it's a little more inaccessible. But it's inhabited. At least that's what the guidebook says. It's got American missionaries on it, which is what the guidebook says. The guidebook was printed when it said, who the German colonial officer was, and I think Helmut von Stupp has been out of a job for 5 years now. There's a population. It's in the low thousands. Like 2 maybe.
Who took this island from the Germans?
Japanese did.
Okay, so the Japanese actually landed there.
Yes,
Okay.
they did. It's sort of
So I know there were a number of them, those islands that the Australians landed on.
it was a race. It was a race to see who could grab up the most stuff and say that we're here to both empires establishing their protectorates.
And this is the place with the disease and Mariana's clap, but I tell you.
Yep. So it did have a disease, although obviously nothing like this ever came out of it.
Except it did.
Except it did. The lifeboats from the Satomaru. The logbook appears to be trying to navigate away from Kosrae. They were actually trying to go to Truk, which is Truk is like, not Truk, Phnom Penh. Phnom Penh is due west of Kosrae. Hey, funny fact, Kosrae's got some of those same kind of megalithic ruins that Phnom Penh has. What do you know? I'm sure that's not a part of the scenario at all. It's due, and they are way north off course. The storm carried these guys way north. If there has been some sort of terrible plague or whatever, clearly we should go to the assistance of our Japanese brothers and see what's what. And he has convinced the captain we should do this. However, the lieutenant is like, I don't know about any disease. Nobody's dropping dead yet. So clearly that's not the thing. But, I'm almost positive that our Western Front veteran can describe some of the amazing chemicals that the Germans dumped all over everybody during the phosgene, mustard gas, all various chlorine gases. And he does take, and he will have taken you aside and sadly gotten a negative answer from you, which is, Gunny, do those corpses look anything like chemical weapons deaths to you?
No.
He pushes that in, are you sure?
I was at Belleau Wood. Where were you?
College. No, that's not true. He was in
high school.
Annapolis. I guess that counts as college. Nobody in the service is going to like this. Anyways, he does push a little harder. Clearly he wants to get the answer, chemical weapons. But let's just go with an unknown chemical agent. An unknown agent has done this to these Japanese sailors. And we clearly should investigate in case the Japanese are either producing it on the island or tested it on the island. And it clearly didn't go the way they wanted to.
Yeah, well, the first thing I'm thinking, down inside is Frank, by the way. Little early for Unit 731, isn't it?
It is a little early, but that's the funny thing. I don't know what happened to the Japanese between 1919 and 1930. Well, I guess maybe 29, because they were mean to the Chinese really early. They didn't get around to being mean to us until 41, but German soldiers who were held prisoner of war in Japanese POW camps in World War I decided that, hey, they were going to stay in Japan and open beer gardens and be the exotic restaurant that, because the Japanese were crazy about everything European. They had such a nice time with their Japanese hosts that they decided to stay. I don't think anyone from the Bataan Death March thought, I should stay in Japan. This is where I belong. I should hang out with these people. And the Japanese were total gentlemen to the Germans. They weren't that great to the Russians, but they were really nice to the Germans, and total Marcus Queensberry rules. Things just go wrong in the 20s as they start to fall down the rabbit hole of fascism.
And not just fascism, they fell down the rabbit hole of, what emerged was this really twisted form of Bushido.
Well, even better, they kind of they filed the numbers off Bushido and came up with something that was this fascist bullshit version of
Absolutely. And these people also, the Japanese, despite what a lot of people might think, so those racist people on Earth, they believed they were descended from the gods.
Yeah.
Amaterasu and
that is still certainly the Japanese outlook in the now. I mean, in the post-Meiji, I guess it's the Meiji, post-Meiji period, right?
Meiji.
Yeah. But they're certainly pretty thrilled at the way they have emerged onto the world stage from starting off in 1868 with, percussion cap pistols, and then they've moved on to battleships and sinking entire European fleets, and, they've annexed Korea and the south end of Sakhalin Island and Port Arthur, and now a giant chunk of the South Pacific, and Taiwan is theirs now. They've exploded onto the world stage, and they clearly mean to challenge everybody in the neighborhood. And while that's mostly, I guess that sort of starts off mostly being the Brits, as the oldest colonial power out here. But they're definitely going to be out to make a name for themselves and build an empire for themselves. That much is sort of generally understood about Japan at this time period. But one of the things that they did not have at the beginning of the war and didn't have much experience with, except as observers in the other armies, was chemical weapons. But yeah, it is a little soon for 731.
But it's not too soon for something called the Black Dragon Society.
Hey now, don't get ahead of yourself.
Oh, okay.
I don't think that's a good question. I have to remember when one turned into the other, because there's another society before that, and then
The Black Ocean Society.
and then they revamped as the Black Dragons for World War II.
Yeah.
I think they dissolved Black Ocean once they've conquered Korea.
Yep.
Once they've taken Korea, they dissolve it and they reconstitute as the Black Dragon Society.
And then you probably
for
also
beating up on China. Then it's all about taking Manchuria away.
Yep.
So these are even at this point in time, plenty of people realize this is going to be possibly the next folks we're going to have to trade punches with. And it's not going to be like beating up the Spanish or the Haitians or the Filipinos or chasing Pancho Villa around in Mexico. The Japanese are, I don't know, whatever, something in O, they haven't had a defeat handed to them in a long time. And certainly if they're going to step up and be, world power like the Europeans, the chemical weapon capacity is right on the front end of modern warfare. And an island, an isolated island that's hard to get to, might be just the ideal spot to air test a weapon like that. Certainly, it's since Rebirth Island is not available out in the Aral Sea, they've decided to go with this one instead.
I'm gonna yawn really elaborately as the LT keeps giving us his excuses for why he wants to do this.
Basically, it's because you're going to have to. Yeah. All right, congratulations, you're going to have to.
The lieutenants told us we're going to have to. We're going to have to.
All right. Journey to the island is another 5 days of steaming along in the sultry South Pacific. But eventually you're going to come up on the island. Do you want any input into the approach on the island? Especially since you guys are going to be making the landing.
I mean, preferably one where we won't get shot if they have a mind to shoot us.
I'd say we take a look at the island. We go in at high tide, and I think we should seriously consider going in at night.
Well, we don't even know what's there, right? I mean,
Yeah.
There's an inhabited village,
Yeah.
ostensibly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And were you thinking about going on to the mainland versus the
Well,
secondary island?
The Leilu Island, like I said, yeah, there's a...
I mean, it sounds like all we need to find out is, what are we trying to accomplish here? He wants us to go in and spy on him? Is that really what we're talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah.
So we should.
And if we're
All right.
caught, we say we've come to help.
All right.
Because
So we need to find somewhere to be able to creep in without being seen, and where's most likely. His theory is there's a chemical weapons plant. So where's the most likely?
or at least that they deployed a chemical weapon on the island.
I mean, where's the most likely? We're gonna be needing population centers to find that.
Then let's see here if I can pull up this other map. The funny thing about the two maps I have, and everything I've been able to find out about the island is that, let's see here, there are some inconsistencies about naming the villages that are here. There is a village on the north end of the island called Teheosaku. There is a village on the east side of the island, south of Leilu Island, called Malem. And there's a village on the very south side of the island called Utwama. Essentially, there are 4 villages, one on the Leilu Island. We'll just call that Leilu. Tafunsak on the north, Malem, and Utwama. The west side of the island has no villages on it. It's that side of the island is the part that, if you'll check this out, and the south and west sides of the island are the parts that have the most
Very
mangrove
swampy.
swamps. However, it would be possible to slip in there with a small boat at the mangrove swamps, cross the island, and look down into this. This is sort of the closest thing there is to has been to a regular harbor.
Yeah.
But this is all sort of flatlands.
Is it on the heights there? Is those
Mount Krosner up here is 2,000 feet.
do we know? Is there a place where we could sort of get up to and have a pretty good view of
Well,
most of
the
those
jungle on this
settlements?
thing, the jungle on this thing is thick enough. And again, there's a
okay.
valley here. This is lowland.
Yeah.
There's a high point here, the highest point here at Mount Krosner, and then this creeps down to about 1,200 feet, and this creeps down to about 1,300 feet for peaks. And then this is very steep over here. This area is more sloping. You could work your way across this thing. You will be going up to uphill to about 1,600 feet, and then down again into this area. Now the island's only about 6 miles across. You're looking at 6 miles. It ain't much. It's maybe at its widest point here it's something like 10.
Yeah.
So it's not a huge area. It's not a gigantic hike.
What are you thinking?
The quietest way would be to just go into the west. So it'll put the whole island between you and every other village. And if you go
Yeah.
at night, there's no smokestack. This is a coal burning ship. So that plume is pretty obvious in 1919.
Yeah.
The difference between coal and diesel, it's like it's bananas. It's like a cloaking device in Star Trek. Ships become invisible when once upon a time, you can see them 32 miles away from their plume.
If there are still American missionaries here, are they in all the villages or?
No, the American missionaries, according to the information you have, are in Utwama.
Southwest?
Yeah, the one on the farthest south side of the island. It's this harbor down in here.
It seems like if we're going to gather any intelligence.
Yeah. What do we know about the mission? Is there a lot of those, or is it just like 2? Do we know anything?
You don't know anything except it says an American mission exists. That's all it's going to be in sort of the Jane's all the world's tiny islands that we're going to be fighting over in 20 years.
I mean, that sounds smart because they're going to know
We're going to know what's going on.
up.
And ostensibly, they'll help us out because
Yeah.
Who knows?
Nationalism.
Maybe they want to
I
get.
like that. I
Maybe
like
they
that
want to.
one.
Maybe they want to get the fuck out. Then you get to rescue American missionaries, and this is another good excuse for arriving: is to say, "Well, we're here to check on the welfare of American missionaries because
All right.
clearly your men are all mummified."
And that'll actually be if we do that, it'll be the last time in history that Americans pull civilians off an island with the Marines. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll never happen again.
No, it won't. Guaranteed. Guaranteed.
So, why don't we just go in broad daylight to that southwest part because we have a reason
that
to be
will
here.
still,
Well,
if
I
you
mean,
go
we'll
to,
have to come in at night
if you
and
come
then
in
let
at
the
Ut-
ship
if you come in-
leave again.
if you come in at Utwama,
Right,
which
and
is
then
down
plan
here.
to pick up the next
This is
night.
all ridgeline. This blocks off Melem, Lalo Island, the other one. It blocks off a lot of view. All right, somebody's going to have to be on this ridge line to be able to see the ship. Yeah. Now, maybe there are lookouts, but again, it's decent cover for the ship. If you're going to put the ship down within a couple of miles
No,
and then paddle in,
That I don't care. I mean, that's Navy business as far as I'm concerned.
And again, we have a legitimate reason to be here. We're checking on the welfare of these folks. So we don't necessarily need to hide. And in fact, having them there, if we ever do need to go around at night, well, they're going to think we're still on the ship anyway. So
are you talking? You're thinking broad daylight show up at
Go up on the west.
Port Lutine, as it's called.
yeah, by the town we think missionaries are in, just be blatant about it. And we're here to check on.
Yep. That sounds
They're allies anyway. So
Well, the hell, they're American citizens,
yeah.
and
But the now Japanese
and the Japanese are
Islanders
totally your World War I allies, since the war is not technically over.
and the natives who are now all Japanese.
Well, I don't know what the natives are now. They're probably still, Protestants.
Well, they were Germans. Now they're Japanese.
I don't think they get to vote.
Yeah, they don't have any
in the
agency.
Reichstag.
They don't have any agency in this, and now they're all Japanese.
Yeah, there's a lot of that about. All right, so that's the plan. The Percival will roll up on this island from the south and anchor offshore about 2 miles out and put you guys over the side in a lovely rowboat, and everyone will row into fabulous Utwama. All right, so step one, at some point, you guys are going to want to observe this little ville, even if it is from 2 miles away. But that's why the Navy gives you those ridiculous giant binoculars that you never can carry around in real life, but are still pretty good. Who wants to glass the island?
That'll happen much later.
Okay. The island looks lovely. From this angle, it does not look like a reclining sleeping lady. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
By the way, do they have Bully Hayes' grave marked?
Nice. Bully Hayes, who shows up being played by
Tommy Lee
Tommy Lee
Jones.
Jones and Nathan Hayes, was actually a horrible slaver who used to raid these islands for slaves that he would sell to plantations in Australia. He was a blackbird. He was a piece of shit. He was also a horrible pirate. He got marooned on this island once, back in the 19th century, and terrorized the locals because their ship sank, the Lenora. His ship sank out there. In this harbor, you're actually going towards Port Lutine. It's Utama was where he was working out of. They terrorized the island for a while. The British showed up, arrested all of his men. I mean, I say mean terrorize. I mean, it was just beating up all the men and raping all the women. There was nothing else to do
Terrorizing.
except to be horrible. I mean, it's not like they could steal their valuables. They had nothing. They were on this island, so they were just horrible for a while. The British showed up. At one point, he tried to convince a ship to land, and we need to be rescued. But the ship's like, no, they'll just kill us all and take the boat. So they sailed away. British showed up with a bunch of Royal Marines, clubbed them all into submission, put them in irons, took them, I think, to Hawaii, where they promptly where Bully Hayes, I think, bribed his way out of prison and left his men to rot. He then, for some reason, returned to the island of Kosrae with another ship. People presume he came back because supposedly the Lenora was filled with gold or silver or something. But before any of that could happen, there was an altercation with a cook on the ship known as Dutch Pete, who stabbed Bully Hayes to death, and they threw him over the side, and the sharks ate him. This is like 1890 something. This is only like 30 years ago,
right.
and it is like Caribbean Blackbeard shit.
Yeah.
But
It sounds like a pretty good comeuppance.
well, it depends. I don't know what kind of guy Dutch Pete was.
Yeah.
Apparently, he didn't take to any criticizing of his eggs Florentine because he filleted Mr. Hayes, and
Yeah, no, the reason why I mention that is because I have seen Nathan Hayes.
yeah.
Boy, did they whitewash.
Oh, he shows up in the there's a Kirk Douglas movie called The Emperor Jones or the
Yeah.
Emperor, where Bully Hayes shows up as the villain
Yep.
in it. And yes, but they were going for that Indiana Jones shit, and was it 1985 or something?
Yeah.
It was right after Indiana Jones had done his thing, and everyone's piling on to the Days of High Adventure. Apparently apparently that requires taking horrible people and pretending they're not that horrible.
Right.
You know? Anyways, there you go. Hooray! Coast Ray has a storied past. So you know for sure I have not studied the island backwards and frontwards in order to dump you into the middle of it. Regardless, you guys do in fact see this harbor. The gunny is able to entertain you with a marvelous story of pirates and cutthroating and guys being fed to sharks. So, hey, don't fall out of the boat as you're rowing to shore. I'm going to go ahead and set it up the same way. The lieutenant is George Washington. The four of you are in the boat. There's 4 guys rowing. Navy guys who are the bosun's mates or whoever's in charge of rowing things. I guess the bosun's really the steering guy.
The bosun is the steering, the rest of them are probably just able seamen.
Coxswain.
Yeah. So, anyways, that way you guys are put on the shore, and there'll be somebody to watch the boat and stay here if you guys wander off into the jungle. So nobody has to go, let's leave a player character behind. That's no good. Nobody wants to leave a player character behind. And you can't leave the lieutenant, because if you leave the lieutenant, then you'll stop doing stupid shit. Anyways.
Well, how about that?
Yeah. Has anything changed? Nothing's changed, right?
Well, my favorite thing is just remember Norman Schwarzkopf, Colin Powell were second lieutenants.
Once upon a time.
Once upon a time. So yeah, you get good ones.
Eventually.
Yeah.
Or they were just bad second lieutenants with Glancy's.
Yeah.
That's very true.
That too.
There could be something to that. Yeah. So, daylight or nighttime? What do we want to decide on?
I think we just said just
Daylight?
Daylight.
All right.
We're not trying to hide yet.
You guys paddle on in. You time it so the tides are up. You don't have to worry about scraping the bottom of this boat off on the reefs. When you get in, you are in fact met by a bundle of Kosraeans. And rather than scroll through the document and find the section where I kept all the Kosraean names, I'm just going to say things like Bob and Frank and Joe, rather than slow this down with a lot of scrolling about. However, let's go find our missionary. You guys get out there to the beach and are being pulled up, and again, it's 1,000 degrees. You'd think if you were savages living on a beautiful desert island, you'd strip down to your shorts at least, but nope. There's a whole bunch of lovely cotton shirts and blouses and things, and everybody's got their hair pinned up in a relatively oddly Victorian hairdos, with their hair all pinned up rather than flopping around. And some guys come out of the. They seem cheerful to see you, and they splash into the water towards your boat. No weapons of any kind appear to exist. There are some small docks here. Most of there aren't any boats. You'll notice that there aren't any boats out here at all. Even though there is, like I said, a small dock made from local wood. The houses are what you'd expect. They're thatched roofs. They're woven mats on the floor. They're all up off the surface of the ground. They're well back from where the tide comes in and such. Actually, sort of in and among the trees that provide a certain amount of cover and shade back there. There are fishing nets hanging on, racks out front and all that kind of stuff. When you guys come tootling up, rowing your way forward, the people come down to the beach and wave. At some point, you can hear somebody yelling from the beach, a woman's voice speaking in English, saying the appropriate, "Ahoy there, who are you? Identify yourselves." And Hope yells back, "We're from the Percival. We're here to check on. Well, please come ashore. We need you to get ashore immediately." So there's a lot of talk about hurry up, get to the shore. You guys get up here, and again, you're met with a lot of smiling faces. They mill around the boat. They help pull the boat onto the shore. People wade into the water to their waist, and they grab the side of the boat. Oh, well, their knees anyway. Grab the side of the boat and pull it up onto the beach so that, it won't be washed away by the tide or
I'm
anything.
going to kind of step out of the way when they're doing that and just sort of look up and look for the ridge lines, and
You can
see if there's anything interesting up there.
You can see the island rising sort of above you.
Okay.
And it is one of those, you get this beautiful greenish blue lagoon, shallow green lagoon with the blue sea out there. You can see sort of the white caps where the reef is disturbing the waves that are coming in. Beautiful blue sky, just emerald green jungle that rises up in front of you. Why anyone would ever want to fight over a place like this? But don't worry, we will. It rises up above you, a couple thousand feet, and is sort of a wall, an impenetrable wall of palm fronds and green foliage. There doesn't appear to be like areas that have been stripped or burned clean so that the rock is sticking out, the volcanic rock. This thing is, in fact, it's supposed to be a dead volcano.
So are there any places in view that would be like, if I were wanting to set up a lookout station, I would be here.
Well, tell you what. I think let's roll into your military science.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not good at that. I just talk like I am.
We just tell you to shoot at things.
Success.
All right. If you were a sniper, and Blanche, you can see a number of spots that could be turned into sniper positions, but there's a big problem. It's the jungle. It's these trees. You can see from the way these palms are here on the beach. If it's palms, everywhere, you're going to have the floor of the jungle is going to be bare. There's not going to be anything growing on it. It's going to be actually really easy to walk through, except for the piles of dead leaves and stuff that have built up. There's not going to be much undergrowth because the light's not going to get to it. It's not palms all the way up. The palms are just down here at the shoreline. But someone would have to get up in a tree to be able to make a look, to be able to see down here into this beach. There's no place to sit on the ground and look down, because as you're coming down, there may be breaks in the foliage.
Even like way up high, or as it
The
gets to
reason
the
I
ridge.
say that is because the slope on this side is so steep.
Oh, okay.
That if somebody gets a view out, they're looking out over the ocean.
Yeah.
They could see the ship, but they wouldn't be able to see into the village.
Right, because the jungle's going to be covering it too much. Right. Okay.
Okay, you guys actually get to meet an American.
Yes.
Woman on the beach. She's about 50. She's 50-ish. Tan like a saddlebag. Wearing Western clothes. She's wearing a skirt, sandals, shirt that is buttoned up rather excruciatingly tall, but and a big old straw hat. And she's got sort of a bag, leather bag slung over her shoulder, and comes out and greets you all, and palavers with the guy who's her social equivalent, the officer, while you guys have to stand around and wait for the ambush. Identifies herself as Bridget Devereaux, and because I do not want to do a conversation between two NPCs here in front of us, let's just have you guys just put questions in the lieutenant's mouth, so that if there's things you want to have asked, it gets asked, because I do not want to, say that you were ripped off because the lieutenant wouldn't ask the right question. So, anyways, she begins by saying that she's very glad you're here. Something seems to have happened to all the Japanese.
What's something?
Well, she says, she says that about a week ago, there was an explosion over at the Japanese compound across from Leilu Island. And the Japanese garrison that was here, their sergeant or whatever woke them up. There's eight of them, and they I waited until dawn. Nobody came to tell them anything. And then they marched off to the other side of the island and never came back. During that period of time, some of the younger men in the village have gone over to see what the problem is, and have reported that the Japanese base is completely deserted. Well, it's not deserted. It's covered in dead bodies. It looks like there was a munitions dump, and the munitions, what do you call it? There was a dynamite shack that they had on the base that blew up. It may or may not have killed anyone, but most people don't look like they've been killed by an explosion. I haven't been over there. The people who went over and looked and you can interview with her as a translator, are some of our younger and dumber and more adventurous types who crept up on the place.
Well, let me ask you, how did the Japanese treat you?
The Japanese treated everybody okay, but they came when they first arrived. Nothing much happened except they got out and put up a Japanese flag and announced, that they were going to build a big quay. They're going to dredge up coral and rocks and build a quay that would be deeper and be able to service a larger ship. And they started building that. They brought in some of their own people, but they also paid. I mean, they paid in like canned food and manufactured goods like axe heads and metal saws and things like that. They kept to themselves. They didn't. They'd go in and out from. They'd go in back and forth to Phnom Penh for a while, which is the other biggest island over that direction. And everything seemed fine. But at some point, things got very strange around here. At some point they confiscated everybody's boats and sank them.
Why?
Well, it happened after the new these sort of, well, it's after the archaeologists showed up. Once they started, those guys showed up. They started poking around at some of the old Polynesian sites on the island. There's some on Lelu, and there's some not too far from Malem. But at some point, they found some new place, and the first thing that they did was one of the first things they did was sort of they wrecked all the boats. People on this island routinely go to Phnom Penh to negotiate marriages. It's not a big island, and it's still coming back. So getting a wife isn't always about marrying local. And she'll be happy to show you. She's got a hut with a giant genealogical freaking wall on it, where she's tracking the various families on the island to prevent birth defects and because the population was so small when the place started coming back, we started having problems in the first years. But when my husband and I came in back in, I guess it's when the Germans were here, before it was Catholics. But it was supposed to be Catholic. I mean, we're part of the Archdiocese of Guam, but there were American missionaries here before from our mission, and they had sort of prevented some of the deprivations that were being forced on the locals. But bringing back the population from such a small base meant that we had to be really careful about intermarriage. And so people would build basically outriggers, locally made, typical Polynesian ships. And you could sail that 400 miles over to Phnom Penh and back, and negotiate for dowries and things. That was very common. But the last year they sank all the boats and made a lot of promises about how everyone would get them back later. That they'd bring food that would make up for the lack of fishing that was caused by losing all the boats. There'd be some compensation, but that no one was allowed to leave the island and travel to Phnom Penh.
Did they bring that food? Did they bring that food?
Yes. Yeah, we ended up, the locals ended up eating a lot of rice that they didn't want, because it was all Japanese food for the most part. They also brought some stuff over from Phnom Penh, like, taro and all that kind of good stuff. But for the most part, it was a lot like, it was kind of like that strategic hamlet thing where, people aren't allowed to live outside the villages anymore. Everyone has to come in. There was a Japanese garrison on a small one, just some of these soldiers who would just be here for, I don't know, a couple of weeks or whatever, and maybe they'd be rolled out for a few months, I guess. But they'd rotate through the different villages before I guess they left. But they were never any trouble. They were always pretty well disciplined. There's no hooch to get them for them to get in trouble. They kept awe away from the local women folk, but
So
after the academics that came from Tokyo and started tearing up the mountainside, things got different.
This new place they found, do the locals know about it?
They paid locals to work it. They didn't bring in.
Did they know about it before?
No. It was it appears to be something I'd never heard of it. And I'd heard of the 3 or 4 small sites that are on the island. They're not very big, but they are places that people put up tooled stone and built some sort of pagan ritualistic structures. The ones on the non-Madal on Phnom Penh is gigantic, huge by comparison. These are really small. They're almost not even. They're almost like where non-Madal is a cathedral. These things are like roadside shrines you'd find in some place like Mexico or Spain or something like that. They're not much to them at all.
So did the Japanese forces have a factory of any kind where they were doing work, research?
No, they had a bunch of scientists, but they didn't have
laboratory.
I haven't been allowed. I was never allowed inside their compound. They have a compound on the other side of the island. That I don't know what's going inside. I don't know what's going on inside all the buildings over there. But I didn't see anything like. I didn't see a factory. I didn't see smokestacks or anything like that. They had an electrical generator for the wireless. They put up a wireless tower.
Sounds like we're in the middle of this hedge maze, so we'll go back to the ship and we'll be all set. Does she recognize the survey ship? It was the name I've forgotten. The Japanese survey ship. These guys.
Yeah, that was the. She says, yeah, that was the name of the ship.
Still here?
Yes. The young men who came back from going over to the compound said they could still see the masts of it sticking out of the water.
Oh, good.
I presume it's the same ship.
Does that any idea what happened to it?
No.
Okay. How from here to that compound or the port, the little port as it were by the island? What's that walking distance?
Well, it depends. There is sort of around the island is kind of ringed by a well-worn path that people have walked around this island for, as long as they've been on the island, and it goes around through sort of the coastal plain around the island all the way up to Teosaku, the northern village. Then there's just like everything's, and then it's all mangrove swamp over there. If you wanted to walk around that way, on the coastal plain, it's probably something like 7 miles, maybe 8. If you'd go through the village of Malem on the way, we spoke to some people in Malem. They said that not only had their Japanese disappeared and left, but when some of their men went to look and see what happened to them, they actually got shot at. They got shot at by when they tried to reach Leilu Island off the coast, the village that's there. That people fired on them from that island, so they stopped trying to go. I mean, they were quickly discouraged.
The Japanese who shot at them, or
We
locals?
don't.
Not sure.
There were some firearms on the island, but the Japanese rolled that up when they turned up. There's no locally owned firearms.
Yeah, but locals could scavenge it from the base.
Certainly,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, so it's a shorter distance, maybe 3 miles, but it would have to cross the ridge line, Mount Crozer, and that's like 1,600 feet up, and then 600 feet down the other side, down to they call it the Nemu River. It's more of a creek, but it flows right down past the compound. They built it right next to the fresh water source on the island.
If we're gonna go there, the path's probably the least resistance.
It would get you there a lot quicker than going over the mountain ridge. Absolutely. If you go over the mountain ridge, though, the one thing that maybe okay. Hopefully you guys can see this. I'll try blowing it up one more time with the zoom to make it big enough to see. All right, so you guys are down here. Utwa, Ma. Malem is over here. There's your river. Your Japanese facility is down here on this coastal plain, facing right. There's right close to their own the dock that they laid in. Right there is Leilu village on the island off the shore. Mount Buache is the one that they were digging on. That's the one they were tearing up. So that's where they sort of put in a rail line. When they were removing all the earth, they sort of put in like a ore cart.
Like narrow gauge.
Yeah, to move the earth off of the whatever it is that they were excavating. And then they extended it so that it came all the way down to their camp.
Okay.
Since the disaster, has she noticed anyone from the locals getting sick or
No.
strange deaths or anything?
No. I mean, the young men who came back from the Japanese base or compound said that everyone was laying around dead. And they saw scores, if not more than 100 bodies, all laid out on what would have been their parade and assembly field in the middle of the base.
She mentioned husband. Is he around?
No, he passed away a couple years ago.
Okay. So is there anyone else on the island who's either American or speaks English?
Maybe some of the Japanese officers. I mean, absolutely, the Japanese officers spoke English. How else can they read all of our secret reports? But yeah, they're the Japanese officers. Yeah, their language they learned.
No other,
in the Navy, it's English.
no other like non-military Americans she knows of, other villages. Other
No,
missions?
they're because of the missionary presence here. A lot of the Coastarians have some basic knowledge of English. I mean, before that, they spoke a pidgin that was the trade language was a pidgin based on Spanish. Okay, which some of the older folks still
Okay,
remember.
well, if I might. All right, listen up. The answers that the lieutenant wants us to get are in that compound.
Stands to reason.
Let's go.
Anything else? I think that's it.
Yeah, I mean, she said some of the locals worked
in the diggings?
Yeah.
Have they talked about what they were doing there?
Yeah.
Were they finding anything interesting? They were just digging a deep hole.
No, they weren't digging a deep hole. They were clearing off what had been, they said, and again, I haven't been because I have not been allowed to. I mean, It's not like the Japanese, they didn't cut everyone's tongues out to silence them, but they didn't let me, as a Westerner, go look at it. But it appears to be that there's a hill, or not a hill, but there's an outcropping in the jungle on the way up the slope of Mount Buache that turns out is it was some sort of structure underneath it. It was some sort of buried giant. I mean, the way they described it sounded like something from. I mean, it sounded big. It sounded like something like. It didn't sound intricate like Angkor Wat, but it sounded big. I mean, that would be my Southeast Asian, my Pacific reference point would be something like that.
Well, or I mean, how would it compare to what's on Phnom Penh?
Phnom Penh is giant stones of basalt and that are weirdly crack off in these bizarre logs of basalt. The way this stuff naturally fissures, it creates these bizarre hexagon at either end logs of basalt, which the locals then, having learned to fissure the rock and in precise ways, use to build these platforms that they then built, sort of stone on top, and made built these huge platforms on top of existing islands. And it's kind of has all these canals through it, and it's been squared off with corners and things.
It was aliens.
But this thing sounds like it was kind of like a flattened pyramid. It's got a slope that was exposed when they were done digging, and a flat top that was exposed when they were done digging. But they didn't. The whole shape hadn't been unearthed, just enough to get inside. They kept digging until they found some entrances.
All right.
At that point, they shoot all the natives away.
So maybe that's where they're making their chemical weapons.
I like that you're still on that. That's good. Some primary school.
LT wants us to find chemical weapons.
So we should go find some chemical weapons. I mean, when Lieutenant Cheney says we're going to find some chemical weapons, we're going to find some precursors.
Maybe they have these things on tractor trailer trucks, and they're driving these mobile labs through the desert.
It's a mobile
that's what
ship.
That's what
The ship was. It was a mobile lab. That's why.
and the train tracks.
That's all coming
exactly.
together.
Can we get a PowerPoint put together?
Yeah.
All right, we got it.
Yeah, this island's going to be like Penamunda. It's going to have underground bases in it, possibly with a V0. So, tooling around the side of the island. So we're going to go and take the easy route through the coastal plain.
Okay, here's the deal. We can either check out the camp first, or we can check out that dig site. I would recommend that before we go to the camp, we go to the dig site, Lieutenant.
Okay.
Find out exactly what it is they were looking for.
The compound is between you and the dig site, unless you take a very straight northerly route, go through some very high, for this island anyways, hits a couple of high elevations. You'll have to go over the one ridge line and down and up into the Mountain Buache. But there's a point where you're going to get to the area that they cleared out, where they dynamited out tree stumps and whatnot, and created a narrow gauge sort of rail line down the side of this thing. So it'll be easier getting up Mount Buache, but getting across this ridge line, which I'll refer to as Mount Crozer, that's going to be a little tougher. It'll take you more time. However, again, you guys are here at first light. You guys are here beginning of the bright day, lots of sunshine.
Gunny, I'm all in favor of not climbing the mountain.
Going to the camp is, if you go around the side of the island, and again, it's going to be a really fast, really quick walk. You guys are not laid down with full packs and shit. You can be around and get to the Japanese compound in, I don't know, probably something like 3 hours at most. Mm-hmm. It's going to be like a 6 to 12. It's going to be like a 6 to 8 hour slog through the jungle.
And then from there, we can pretty much go up the rail tracks, right?
Yeah, we just rewrite in style on the railroad.
Who knows how to operate a train? Somebody's got to operate heavy machinery.
How hard can it be? You drive on one direction, you don't have to steer it, make it hot, and goes that way. Very simple. So
you're gonna be great running the brake during the switchbacks, and this thing just goes right off the side. That won't be a problem except the trip down.
Well, you said the jungle has old rotted leaves. We just jump in a conveniently placed pile. We're safe.
Conveniently placed pile of leaves. That's exactly.
You've got those written in, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right here on page 6, right next to the Shoggoth.
So I think going around the island, going through that compound is the easiest way if we're going to be going that way anyway.
All right, that's the plan then. On the way, you hit the village of Malem. They're all very happy to see you. They want to know what's happened. They warn you that people shot at them when they tried to go to Leilu Island, and all their Japanese left, and everyone's dead, and the ship sank, and many other facts.
What's our ability to? I mean, I don't want to bog down if our communication with them is like 3 or 4 English language words at a time.
Yeah, they're coming at you with about English of between 10 and 20. Okay. They're not fluent. They're giving you about half of it, but they sort of they attempt to make themselves understood.
So the only question I'm curious to answer is whether or not what I'm trying to get what I'd like to get to the bottom of is whether on the island of Leilu is some Japanese who fled over there and are defending it now, or some natives who've looted the compound of weapons and are holding it there. So I'm curious if these who are also natives would know if there was brethren there who shot at them or not.
Well, if you dig around on that, a little bit. Let's go ahead and.
I know Spanish.
Yep, and
that helps.
Let's see here. You have some Spanish, so go ahead and there. I said the pigeon was related.
Yeah, I was going to say relate to that old.
Go ahead and give me a roll in your Spanish language. Say you do.
No.
Okay, they look at you like they bring you a shoe with cheese on it. Un zapata con queso. It works out perfectly. Let's see how the lieutenant does with his Japanese. 26 out of. Between his English and his Japanese, because the Japanese have been giving orders to these guys, not in Kosraean, I should point out, for about a year now. They've picked up some Japanese. He sort of comes up with the information that it sounds like guys in blue uniforms. It sounds like they were shot at by Japanese soldiers who were on Leilu Island.
Okay. So that's good to know. There might be some Japanese left.
Well, they're definitely trying to keep the people on the island.
Or they could be terrified of what happened because they escaped it and they were over there just dug in.
Oh, the Japanese have a wireless.
On Leilu?
No, on the compound.
Yeah. So if they're on Leilu, they could be cut off and they maybe just hold up there.
Yes, they could have said from help from Phnom Penh, but they got rid of all the local boats.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of good intel, I think.
So, anything else you want from the folks in Malem?
Do we want to encourage the sailors to just sail around and meet us on that side of the island, since we're walking, we're hiking around?
Yeah. Well,
or do we want to leave?
I'm perfectly
leave them
willing
here?
to retcon any orders you want to give behind to the sailors. The problem is to get to the Japanese compound, they'd have to row this boat past Leilu Island, and it is a relatively narrow gap between the island on either side. One side goes right past the village, and the other side is close enough that it's rifle range out there. We're talking about you're out in the middle of the open and you're being shot at by guys who aren't bobbing around like your boat with bolt action 19th century rifles that hit things at 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
If you put enough bullets around downrange, So it would be dodgy. It would be hair raising to say the least, if they were to do that.
Is there a Japanese flag in one of these villages?
Yes.
I would like it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, there is a Japanese flag flying on Leilu Village.
What about the other villages? No?
No.
Okay. All right.
No. Anybody else? All right. Welcome to the compound. So, your first sign of this place is actually going to be the docks, because as you're coming around the island, you'll essentially be coming around this bend here, and as you come up, you'll be able to. Let me just blow that up slightly more.
We should get a good look at Leilu too, then.
Yes, you should. Stop that. So, I have lazily placed the Japanese base on top of what is now the modern, I guess you'd call it administrative center of Coast Ray Island that has been built. Yes, on the river, because it's the big water source, and it's a new post 1945, construction. But anyways, that's basically where your Japanese facility is, and this is this car road from this modern map is back in 1919, just basically a well-worn footpath. However, it does go to it. You'll see sticking out here this little black.
So we've got if we're coming around that, like we've got a good long while that we're looking across at that island,
both the island
and the compound ahead of us. Right.
Yeah. Now, the ranges here are still, the narrowest point we're talking about. Like, let me see if I can blow this up and make sure I've got the right scale. Okay, hello USGS, come here, stop. All right.
We'll reference your standard grid, and then.
Yeah, I'll do that.
How long is a minute at this latitude?
It's feeling like the minute is longer and longer the longer it takes me to look this up. Yeah, that. Okay. Huh. So that's 1, 2, 3. Man, it's very close to 300 feet per square on this map. So if I go over here back,
that's only 100 yards across.
So this is
Less
300
than
feet.
100 yards.
So it's
Yeah,
super close here to get shot at.
Yeah.
If you were to come out, this is like 300. This is like 100 yards.
Wow.
On a side.
So we may want to cut that corner, or at least stay maybe in the tree line there.
Yeah. If you want to come over the top of this ridge line, like from over here to here, you will, or you can navigate your way across that and get in close enough that you can check out the docks before you move up the. And essentially, what this is at this point is once upon a time it was a dirt path. Now it's they literally have a rail line that goes all the way down there
To the dock.
to the dock. It goes right through the camp.
Well, so I'd say let's kind of creep around then.
Yeah.
So we can.
At
least
It
until we
will,
can
it
tell
will
when
not
they're-
give you the best look at Leilu Island, but
Well-
go ahead and give me some alert, because this will require alertness rolls to find a spot in the trees that looks good. Alertness rolls all around, please.
Or if you want, I can sneak up there and spy on them for an hour and see what's happening.
One thing I want to know.
Well, you could send the sniper to go peek through the trees, and in fact, you could use your athletics to climb a tree and fall to your death. I mean, spy on the Japanese compound.
Alert.
Just made it 64 out of 65.
Okay.
This is alertnesses.
Yes.
Critical success.
Oh, all right. That's good for this. That's good for the sniper. Anybody else make a success?
It looks like a jungle to me, boss.
Okay. Looking directly into a palm tree.
I don't see any way around this.
Oh,
wait.
and you know what else you see on the island? Those giant, crazy coconut crabs. They're
That's what I
horrible.
was thinking.
They do live on Coast Ray, and I'm sure there's a comical jump scare moment in the movie where one of you guys sees one of these horrible creatures and unfortunately doesn't blast it with a shotgun and alert everybody that you're here. But yeah, Coast Ray has the giant, crazy fucking coconut crabs. Absolutely.
Yeah, when you were talking about mangroves, it's the first thing I thought of, freaking coconut crabs.
Oh yeah, this place has got everything. Ancient ruins, coconut crabs, you name it.
Ancient coconut crab.
Lost pirate treasure.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm going next week.
To be continued. This episode of Arc Dream Presents was recorded live at the Omni Hotel at NecronomiCon 2019 in Providence, Rhode Island. Special thanks to Adam Scott Glancy, to our players Kevin Ham, Frank Fry, Timothy Duchesne, and Shane Ivey, and to Jesse Gorton of Necronomicon. Links to their work can be found in this episode's show notes. If you enjoyed this episode of Arc Dream Presents, be sure to subscribe and give us a rating on iTunes or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. This episode's music is Nyarlathotep by the Darkest of the Hillside Thickets, courtesy Divine Industries. Copyright 2019. Visit www.thickets.net.